And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. That's Bud Elliott. That's Danny Kanell. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, a.k.a. the Cover 3 Tailgate, where, and I mean this sincerely, I would love to hear from Michael. Because you know what? Our relationship with Michael in Dallas has been going on for years. And this is a great week to be Michael. You know, everything that you've been beating the table on, he's here. He gets to celebrate it. Well, we'll of course be looking at the national championship game. Big game breakdown coming up on Wednesday. The national championship game locks will be coming up on Thursday. Monday, the day of the game, might give you that annual sort of props-tacular type thing where we just sort of run down all the different player props and unique game props that are available. I mean, heck, it's our Super Bowl, so we might as well treat it as such. But for today, it's a Monday. It's upon further review. We'll get into all that and so much more. I wanted to at least start. It's glad to see everybody. Bud's still on the road. Are you coaches convention?
Yeah.
All right. So we're still out there. We're still getting it done, but everybody at least got out of the snowy, sleety, icy Texas as best as they could. Tom, biggest takeaways from the live show?
It was really fun. I very much enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed being on stage. I enjoyed the immediate feedback. I enjoyed meeting those that came out and were able to brave the kind of crappy weather conditions to do so and just hung out with us. It was a whole hell of a lot of fun.
Production crew was awesome. Like seeing all our fans was incredible, man. Like that was really cool. Like that, you know, I thought we would probably have, including walk-ups, like 700. Obviously, like, you know, with the snow, you could barely get there. So like everybody who came out, like it was a real effort to come out. And like we appreciate it.
It was phenomenal. I love it. You know, sometimes when you do what we do and we all sit, first of all, I love being together with all us four in the same spot. That's always great. But like you get in these kind of modes where you forget the passion of fans. You know, you can feel them through the chat and the tailgate. You can see them on X, but to get to talk to people that are there in person and want to chat and just talk ball, there's no better feeling than that. So feeling the passion that we all love about our sport and seeing that out there, I think that kind of hits home.
Vols fan in the tailgate right now. Yeah, like he said that it was good that the tailgate was involved. You know, we were able to take questions from the audience. We were able to make sure that y'all were there. And I think that was one thing that my takeaway spinning this forward, we were able to make it about everybody who was there. I mean, I don't know if you were able to tell at home, but we threw the rundown out the window about 10 minutes into the thing. Like, okay, well, let's just make this about the people who are here and the people who are tuning in, because that's ultimately what this is. Chances are, if you are tuning into us, and definitely if you are driving through sleet and snow, you listened to the other episodes that we've been putting out in advance of this. So just to be able to chop it up with everybody, that was probably one of my big lessons along the way, is that when we're doing these live shows, always remember it's going to be about the fans that rock with us. T-shirt MVP, is it the Sicko Mode T-shirt?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I talked to our guy. He's going to be coming to Chapel Hill for the TCU North Carolina game opening weekend. Gave him some golf recommendations. Maybe we'll be able to catch up with him. Maybe he'll rock the Sicko Mode T-shirt to Keenan Stadium. We can only hope that the homemade ULM Kentucky game would be right there. So we're excited to do that. And again, thanks everybody for coming out. Before we get to our upon further review from the college football playoff semifinals, and we do have a lot of them, we had some information we were able to kind of discuss in some other platforms. You know, we were on CBS Sports HQ, CBS Sports Network, and the like, but we haven't really gotten a chance to unpack it here. So let's jump into the portal. So y'all know the small domino, big domino meme? Everybody knows what I'm talking about here. Small domino Caitlin Clark absolutely cooks LSU's Haley Van Lith in an Elite Eight game. Big domino. Carson Beck goes to Miami. Follow me here. Because Haley Van Lith then goes to TCU, cutting into the Cavenders playing time. She transfers to Miami. Boom. Now we've got Carson Beck at Miami. Danny, are you and Carson going to be tight? Or are you expecting you'll run into him around town?
You guys know the story well of our morning show, the CBS Sports HQ college football pregame show, going out to dinner on a Friday night on a Georgia bye week and running into one Carson Beck and Hannah Cavender. I was not there. Mackenzie was, Jordan was, and Damian was. If he hangs out in Fort Lauderdale, which maybe there's a chance he does, maybe I do run into him. That's my old stomping grounds. Do you guys think this is going to work the way they think it is?
Ooh,
like,
the way they
how
think
do
it
we
is.
define what they think it is.
Yeah. The way they think it is an interesting
Run
way
it back. Another 10-2, right on the verge of playing in the playoffs. And if it works great, he's in. I would push back seriously against that. I have my concerns about this move for the Miami Hurricanes. I don't think it works. They have to do a lot of rebuilding.
Well, there's no Clemson. Okay. They'll be favored in all 8 ACC games.
Will they be favored at Florida State?
Yeah, I think
Probably.
So.
Okay.
Wow, you guys are just
Not
abandoning
by like
shit.
a ton, but like they have better players than FSU does. So, and maybe better coaching staff, depending kind of what you think about Mario. But like Florida State just went 2-10, so obviously like there's not much candle to hold there.
Yeah.
But they definitely have a lot better players. Like talent wise, I don't think it's really that close. There'll be dogs at home to the Irish, depending on what happens with QB, like for Notre Dame, but not big dogs. And they get the Gators in Miami too. Like there's a chance Miami's favored in 12 games. I definitely think they can go 10-2 again.
For me, the bigger
Sounds
question.
like you buy it.
I think they could go 10-2 if Carson Beck is just like a top 3 quarterback in the ACC. I just don't think the ACC schedule for them is that challenging.
And I don't think that he's going to replicate Cam Ward's numbers.
No.
I don't think Miami is going to be the top offense in the country.
No.
But there is 100% a chance, especially when you consider the way that Mario Cristobal tries to build out his offensive line and tries to like set this thing up so that he can have some protection and play within the rhythm of the system. Then yeah, he could go out there and he can put up some big numbers. I don't know if Carson Beck is your take you over the top quarterback. I think he can maintain the success that they've had.
I think you look at the situation, the 2 biggest question marks to me would be his arm, first of all.
Like just coming back from surgery.
Yeah.
Coming off the surgery, like how's his arm going to be? Like, is he going to have the same zip and all that kind of stuff he had before? The fact that like that Notre Dame game is the first game of the year. Because of the surgery, Beck is not going to he's not going to be with the team in the spring. He's not really going to be with the team in the summer. He's not going to be joining them until shortly before the season. So the familiarity with his teammates and the offense might not be fully there by that the season opener against Notre Dame. So that's going to be tough. So it's going to be interesting to me to see how healthy he is, how he looks, how he fits in that offense, because he's not Cam Ward, man. Like he's a good quarterback, but Cam does a lot of off schedule, off platform stuff that I don't think Carson Beck can do. And Cam was able to bail that offense out of some stuff at times, and I don't think Carson Beck's gonna be able to do it. But on the other side, like I don't think he's not as overall the prospect that Cam Ward is. But I still think Miami's offense could be pretty good with him. Like I don't think they're gonna fall off a cliff. To me, the bigger question will be, what the hell does the defense look like? Because if that defense was just kind of okay this year, that team's in the playoff. It's probably undefeated. So where they've made the change at DC, how much improvement do we see on that side of the ball? And then do they if they've improved defensively, they don't need Carson Beck to be Cam Ward. They don't need him to throw for 40 touchdowns. They just need him to be a guy who can throw for about 30 and not turn the ball over too much.
So all right, let's go into the Sonny, and I do want to get to the Corey Heatherman part of this as well, because it's one of 2 really big defensive coordinator news pieces that have come out here in the last couple of days. What does what does Carson Beck, let's offer so what if he does come back with full arm strength? Like what about Carson Beck attracted that Miami coaching staff, because when I look at Shannon Dawson and I think about that Miami offense, the arm strength and vertical passing game, that's money right there. And if you were looking around at other potential quarterbacks that were available, Carson Beck, again, if we've got full arm strength, should be able to, maintain that kind of advantage that they have. What about Carson Beck is attractive here?
I think it's the Florida game, the Tennessee game, and the Georgia Tech game, right? Like Georgia Tech, he threw a bunch of dimes and they had a bunch of drops. Tennessee, he played really well. Florida, he played pretty well. Like down the stretch, he played better than he had to start the season. I don't really know why he started to play better. Like Georgia's receivers certainly did not get better, but I think if you're Miami and you're paying that kind of money, you're like, okay, like we saw the Florida game, we saw the Tennessee game, we saw the Georgia Tech game. That's in there. Like we actually played Georgia Tech. We kind of know what they run on defense. We saw the throws this guy was making. That can work here.
So
and obviously you're playing in the ACC, so like
the defense,
it's really easy mode talent-wise compared to what the SEC has.
So you said the Florida game, the game that he said we should have blown him out if I hadn't had 3 picks. That one.
I mean, he also threw for 8 yards per attempt and like 300 yards. Like that, like Georgia couldn't run the ball this year. Miami's run game, Miami's O-line is a lot better than what Georgia's been running out.
Like
Georgia's had their
pick
of the litter recruiting wise.
I don't know. They were favored in every game last year. Probably could have been 8-4 with a quarterback who was much more dynamic and much more mobile and who made a bad offensive line look good. I think the far bigger improvement this team needs to make and could make is on the defensive side of the ball. Like, I think that's where you're like, but man, they paid a lot of money for a quarterback that I think there's a lot of question marks about. That's just where I caution them. And maybe they have they have a lot of money to spend. Maybe they spread it around and they're able to bring in some players to help Carson Beck. But I don't know. I don't know.
To be fair, I had a lot of question marks about Cam Ward when they went and got him. Like, we hadn't seen him playing at this level. We'd seen him make a lot, and it turns out like a lot of the mistakes he made at Washington State were just based on the fact that he had to do everything by himself and he just kind of forced things. And at Miami, he didn't have to force things as much. And we saw Carson Beck 2 years ago when he had weapons and he had a run game. He looked pretty damn good for Georgia. This year, without the run game, without Brock Bowers, without Ladd McConkey, without a reliable wide receiver, he didn't look that good. So if he goes to Miami and they can give him a run game and they can give him reliable targets and he's healthy, maybe we see a return to the 2023 version, the guy that we were talking about as a possible first-round pick.
Yeah.
Are they bringing in Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey?
They should. If they could, I mean, I think it's going to be hard to get Brock to leave the NFL, and Ladd's had a pretty good season, but if you've got that money, maybe you can sway him. I don't know.
What about the money that's being spent on Corey Heatherman, the new defensive coordinator? He comes over from Minnesota. What do we make of the hire for the Hurricanes?
It's a pretty drastic change in terms of like how aggressive you're going to be.
Yeah. We're going from let's blitz every damn down
let's
to
keep it all
let's
in front
just drop 8 all the time.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, like you heard Lance Guidry, when it works, it works. It's great. But like there were a lot of times last year where they were being aggressive and they were getting burnt to a crisp because of it, because their secondary just couldn't hold up, but they never adjusted. So clearly, I mean, this could be like, you see a lot of times when you fire a head coach in any sport, you go from like the player's coach to the disciplinarian. You go the opposite. I feel like this is just kind of like Mario, like, well, I don't want to do that again. I'm going to bring in somebody who's willing to just drop into zone and force him to go, red zone roulette on me once in a while. So it'll be interesting to see if it works. Like Minnesota's defense was pretty good considering they didn't really have elite players. Like Coy Parrish was awesome for him as a freshman. But other than that, there wasn't really anybody on that unit where I would watch and be like, wow, that guy's a stud. But they still played pretty well overall. So I think it's a hire that makes sense. Will it work? I don't know. I still think they need to improve that secondary quite a bit.
I mean, you've got athletes rally to the ball. I mean, it's like that. It makes sense. It feels like an improvement, but I was also bullish on Guidry too. I thought that when you had the pass rushers that were on the roster, and I know that they dealt with some injury issues, especially along the defensive line all through the year, but I felt like that was something where they were going to be able to really cause some problems in the ACC, especially coming out of the way that they played in the opener up in the swamp against Florida. But then it did not take long. I mean, Virginia Tech shreds them for a whole bunch of yards, whole bunch of points in late September. It went all the way in. Malik Murphy and Duke were scoring a bunch on them, and then of course the blown 21-0 lead to Syracuse at the end of the season. There was more than enough examples of reasons why maybe they need a little bit of a different change in philosophy. As of Monday morning, we have another very interesting change in defensive coordinators along the ACC as Matt Zenitz, right before we got going, has confirmed that Penn State's Tom Allen has agreed to become the new defensive coordinator at Clemson. This is something that is expected to get finalized in the next day or so. Danny, you're a big Tom Allen guy. And I got to tell you, I mean, love everybody.
Are you just finding out?
Yeah, I'm just finding out. I didn't know this news. I was not working out. I also am kind of flabbergasted by how many defensive coordinators the ACC is stealing from the Big Ten, including a team that just made the semifinals of the college football playoff. I am a big Tom Allen fan. You know why I think it's a good fit? I mean, and we talked about the attractive nature of this job in general, where you've got job stability, you can make a really big paycheck. But Tom Allen does have that sort of mentality that Dabo preaches to it's the culture thing. We're family, a little bit more old school. Yes, we'll go pluck from the portal finally, but I'd rather have guys that I recruit and build from within. I think Tom Allen fits that to a T. So like from a culture style, fit, I think it's a great fit.
So I actually got tipped to this last night. So my buddy said, I don't know if they can make it happen, but guy with Clemson connections thinks they're going to get Tom Allen. He and Dabo are tight, and Matt Luke, who's the Clemson offensive line coach, is also really tight with Tom Allen from their time together at Ole Miss.
Yeah, so, great call there. I just see Tom Allen's love everybody, love each other. Dabo's entire essence. I mean, that is just a perfect marriage right there, at least in terms of the way they're going to coach and the way they're going to sort of address their messaging. It was, they always had their mental Mondays and they would have their meditations, and then Brent Venables wouldn't be paying attention because he'd be in the back just drawing up blitzes like a madman on Mondays. I feel like Tom's not going to be Brent Venables, but we know that Tom has the defensive chops that he can at least bring the experience, the caliber, and sort of that high-end ceiling that they just didn't have under Wes Goodwin. They tried to do the guy who was Brent Venables' protege. It didn't quite work. There were times where that defense let them down. I think that for Clemson, it follows the trend that we talked about. Clemson was the first $1 million defensive coordinator school. I don't know what Tom Allen's goals were at Penn State or what his big picture goals are, but to me, if Clemson is able to hire Tom Allen from Penn State, that shows that they are still prioritizing the way that they pay their coordinators and the way they're trying to make these deals done.
You mentioned Dabo's
I think it's important for the narrative too, right? Like, you're not the ACC grabbing two Big Ten coordinators. It eventually, do they get swamped with TV money? Probably. Yeah. Is it happening this year? No.
Well, it's also at Clemson and Miami.
Exactly.
I think we have to look at the ACC in the modern era as the ACC and then the ACC plus. And Clemson and Miami are definitely ACC plus teams.
Yes.
What's interesting is Penn State, this is going to be their 50th defensive coordinator change now in the last 10 years. The defense continues to be good. I think it's a really good hire for Clemson. I'm not sure where Penn State's going to go, but I'm confident that they'll still be fine because they've been fine through 1,000 different coordinators.
Yeah, you bring in Manny, you lose Manny, you bring in Tom Allen, you lose Tom Allen.
Does it tell you anything does it tell you anything about Penn State, where they are as far as in the hierarchy? Is this a lateral move or is this a better job?
Lateral.
I think it's lateral.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Which
is odd. You don't see those a whole lot.
But you do get Big Ten level athletes at these two schools and play against ACC athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So your numbers are going to they should be really good. Obviously, it didn't work out for Guidry at Miami, but a lot of the ACC schools just don't have money to keep the good players. So you are getting to face lesser competition more often than you're facing in the Big Ten.
And
your numbers are going to stay good.
Penn State did not play Purdue this year, right? Just pulling this off the top of my head.
I don't believe so. I don't remember that game.
But you've got Will Helt, one of the top, edge rushers, coming out of Purdue. You're able to put him in. Tom Allen knows what to do with a really, really good edge rusher coming from the Big Ten. I think that is going to be a key piece of that. Yes, Tom.
They did play.
Okay, they did.
You'll never guess who won.
Was it 67-6? 66-0?
It was only 49-10. It's a pretty disappointing performance by the Nittany Lions, honestly. We should have known then that they weren't good enough to get to the title game.
Of course. Let's see. We got that. Oh, one last piece of a little bit of news update before we hit a break and then really turn our attention to upon further review. Alex Orji to UNLV. Dan Mullen has his starting ? Quarterback or has a quarterback.
He's also got Calandria.
Who was the white kid that they had at Mississippi State? Mullen, and they started off
Nick Fitzgerald. Was that who it was?
Look, if he can win ball games in the SEC with Nick Fitzgerald, I'm pretty sure he can win ball games in Mountain West with Alex Orji. Neither of them can throw a lick, but Dan can figure it out.
I think Calandria is probably your starter in all likelihood. And then Orji maybe could earn the job, but he's bringing in competition. It is, I don't know, man. You got the Whoopsie Daisy King and a guy named Orji in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's
come on.
I mean, that's too easy. Dan Mullen. Hey, listen, our guy Dan Mullen, we're not trying to put you in a corner here, but the joke was there, right? Dan Mullen misunderstood the assignment. He misunderstood the invitation. little typo in but I mean, a specialized package for Alex Orji within the context of red zone, goal to go, short yardage situations, the creativity of Dan Mullen and everything he's proven. I mean, I think how about this? Do you know who's the biggest winner there? Alex Orji.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a G5 coach that is going to be better suited to make you look good on tape than Dan Mullen.
For what?
To be a slot wide receiver in the NFL.
Okay. I was going to say, the thing that's going to help Alex Orji in his next career is going to be his transcripts.
Damn. All right. Enough of that. Let's get back into the teams that are still playing, the teams that were just eliminated late last week. And coming up on the other side, we will get into upon further review. One last word on the college football playoff semifinals before we spin it ahead. All that and more next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. It is a Monday. We had some activity over the weekend. Well, Thursday, Friday, might as well count. So let's go under the hood. There were terrible calls. Do you want to go ahead and jump in?
After further review.
All right. First of all, injury update. Jake Knapp out. Yikes. Tom, we assumed it, but now that we've got, there was some press conferences for both of the head coaches.
Jake Knapp? Hold on. I just said
Anthony Knapp.
Anthony Knapp. Sorry. Yeah.
Anthony Knapp. I think it's a baseball guy.
Oh, yeah. Anthony Knapp, starting left tackle for Notre Dame. He is going to be out for the national championship game. There has, there have been some commentary about ways that you can shuffle the line. Marcus Freeman's official response in the press conference, we are not ruling anything out as they look to make the adjustment. Tom, what do you see in terms of his absence and the path forward for Notre Dame?
Well, it's an odd situation because if Jagusa is able to play, you're kind of coming full circle in that he was the original starter and then he got hurt and Knapp replaced him. And it's okay, well, we're upgrading because now we have our original starter back. It's just he hasn't played all year. So he doesn't have the same kind of experience that Knapp has earned. Either way, it's not an ideal situation to be in. like being down that many guys along the lines of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, because they've got injuries on the defensive side too. And now you're piling them up on the offensive side. And you're facing Ohio State, who also has injuries that they've been dealing with on the offensive side of the ball, but they've been able to, have more time to get ready for this game. It's not a good spot to be in, because offensively you have not been incredible in these last couple games, even though you've gotten through and you have won. And now you're facing Penn State was a great defense. Georgia's a great defense, but you can argue that this is the best defense you've seen yet. And it's going to be difficult for them to move the ball because they have been somewhat one-dimensional to begin with. And now you're losing guys up front. It's going to be even harder to run the ball. Jeremiah Love is still banged up. Like I've talked about this. The playoff is very much a battle of attrition at this point. It's going to be the healthiest team at the end of the year is going to win. And neither of these teams is really healthy. It's just Notre Dame's been suffering injuries for months now, and they keep piling up, whereas Ohio State's kind of, stemmed the bleeding a little bit. So it's a very, very tough spot for them to be in, but they have a lot of experience in overcoming these injuries already, and that they've won these games despite losing guys all year long. I think not having Knapp is a blow, but I also feel like Knapp was one of the, he's been solid. Like, the kid deserves a lot of credit for being a freshman, being thrust into the starting left tackle spot on Notre Dame when you weren't supposed to be the starter, and holding up pretty damn well all year long. But it's not like he is irreplaceable, especially if Jagasaw is healthy enough to play.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like at different times this year, we kind of were like, hey, this could be a fatal flaw. When Notre Dame lost Jagasaw in the preseason, like, not a lot of people have good tackle depth. Obviously, Ohio State losing their center and at times 2 tackles, but certainly the best tackle out for the year. They still managed to beat Penn State, right? Like, they still managed to chuck it around. I know obviously the corner fell down, but like, that's still a really nice route that the kid ran, that they protected it enough. Like, they protected it up enough to still go out and get that victory. Obviously, the defense had a ton to do with that, but like I do think Ohio State's D-line is better than Penn State's. I know the Ohio State secondary is better than Penn State's secondary, and I think the backers probably are as well. So it will just be another challenge, and it's like, shoot, this is going to be tough. And also, I think you probably, if you gave Ohio State 24 in this matchup, I think Ohio State's taking that and probably taking it to the bank, right? But in theory, like, they could go get more if they wanted to up that risk tolerance. They wanted to try to be like, Ohio State probably doesn't have to be real risky, but I don't want to give them the big game breakdown. We'll save that for the Wednesday show. But I am interested to kind of see how risky the Irish can be here, because they probably need to score more than they actually had to score against Penn State if they want to win it. Going back and watch this one, I was like, really, God, they played a ton of just like super ballsy single high man, and it worked, man. Like, they just that's risky, and they just did it, and Penn State never made a play. I was really impressed by their corner play.
Gonna be a little trickier this matchup.
Yep.
Well, right, like, you can't run what you ran against Ohio State,
right?
Like,
and I think they
have
won't.
to run what you ran against USC and against Indiana.
Right.
What did you learn? Danny, do you make a lot of the passing game success for Notre Dame? Is that a Riley Leonard flipping the narrative a little bit?
No.
Okay.
No. I thought he made some nice throws, but he also made a couple bad ones too. Like, I just think you're going to get a little bit of bumpy ride with Riley Leonard. I don't think you want to have him be your offensive game plan, as he's going to drop back. And I think that's one of the things where losing a tackle isn't that concerning, because he is mobile. And I think Denbrock will build a plan that will kind of build around that deficiency, and he'll have to put the team on his back and try to run it some and be very efficient. But like, that's what I've always wondered, if somebody takes away his legs completely, which nobody's really been able to do, that's where I think he gets exposed as a passer. But when he can run, even if just a little bit, he's dynamic as it gets. And then it puts you in a bind, and then it kind of opens up those passing lanes.
Bud, you mentioned that there were some things as you had gone back to break it down that really stood out to you. What What you could go either from the Notre Dame Penn State or from the Ohio State Texas. Take it anywhere you want.
Yeah, I think if you look at it, like Michigan was the game plan that Texas like largely copied. You know, Michigan was like, we are not going to let you get the ball over the top here against us at all. We're going to stay in too high. We're going to let our front win despite being a gap down, and we can see if you can do it. And really, that's what Texas did. They were like super conservative on offense, with the exception of blitzing on that screenplay, which didn't work out real well for them as Henderson housed it for 75. And I think if you look at that, like, what's the commonality between Michigan and Texas? Both have linebackers who can really run. I think when going back and watching the tape here, and like obviously in these island games, you got more time to go back and actually watch them than, you know, when you have 35, 50 games on a Saturday. Like, I thought Texas backers closed space really well. I thought they ran extremely well, and those guys are fast. But they also have very, very good interior defensive linemen. And obviously Notre Dame has good interior defensive linemen. I don't think they have like what Michigan and probably not what Texas has.
Not
So
without Mills, they don't.
yeah, like those guys up front allowed Texas and Michigan to play a super conservative game plan. And they're basically like, cool, you guys think you can run the ball on us? We don't believe that, at least not enough to hurt us. Obviously, passing is a lot more efficient than running. So like you got to be running the ball real well to get them to get out of those looks. And Ohio State was not able to run Michigan out of those looks. They were not able to run Texas out of those looks. But I don't know if Notre Dame can copy that. Like, that's going to be really interesting. Notre Dame is probably going to have to do a better job of confusing them, I think. And like Golden, those guys are going to have to call the game of their life, you know, most likely. But like that was interesting to me for sure. I thought the Texas backers, how well they ran, was really impressive. I also wonder, like, do you think they had more QB run game stuff planned up for Howard and then got off it because Howard botched a zone read badly in the first quarter? Like he
Played
wasn't
hero
seeing it
ball
correctly. Yeah, Judkins is just gone
if he hands it off. Yeah,
100%. So to me, I'm like, and we'll save some of this for big game, but I think you're going to get 4 or 5 like design runs for Howard, like not reads, just hey, let's bash it, right? Like, you know, QB counter stuff. Because at this point, what are you saving him for?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we were live directly after the game. Jack Sawyer, all-time post-game press conference. Jack, could you take us through what you saw when you were going down there? Don't fall like Will did. I mean,
he didn't.
He did it. Yeah.
It shows the power of positive thinking.
Yeah, Jack Sawyer said he got to the 30, started running out of gas. Said, "Oh man, I hope I've got blockers. Don't fall like Will did." All right, let's stay there. Danny, haven't gotten a chance to hear from you yet. That thought sort of as you were unpacking Ohio State, Texas, and the way that everything went down when Texas has the ball right at the goal line. You're down 7. We're thinking this is going to be going to overtime, another overtime game, you know, here in the late parts of the season. And yet, of course, you've got the failures early and then ultimately the really, really special play from Jack Sawyer on the 4th down. What'd you make of sort of the way that game played out or the final sequence?
I thought it kind of played out the way I thought it would. I thought if Texas had a chance in that game, it would have to be defensive led. I didn't think they would put up many points. I thought their defense played that kind of keep them in front of you. Don't give up the big play. Don't let Jeremiah Smith go off. They did. As far as the last sequence, when they get 1st and goal on the 1-yard line, I know the second goal, you know, 2nd one toss to Wisner was something that took a lot of scrutiny. I don't know. I am not that upset about it. I heard Sark afterwards too, was very calm, cool, and collected. He's like, you know, everybody's got this. I tossed the ball to Warwick Dunn a ton. We ran, 48 sweep, toss sweep, a ton on the goal line. Sometimes you have to tip your cap to the other team. And I know it's easy to second guess. And you say that, but Caleb Downs made one of the best plays we've seen. It's kind of get overshadowed because Jack Sawyer's play on 4th down is the one that everybody's going to remember. But it was just spectacular defense. And it's funny because I get upset sometimes too, and it's similar to when there's a quarterback in there and it's 4th and 1 or 4th and inches and the quarterback's lined up in shotgun. You're like, why are you giving up those yards? And when it works, you're like, oh, well, the guy had some momentum. He got downhill. He was running. And I think it's kind of the same. I think some people are playing the results, which I get, and that's what we do. But I didn't have that big of a problem running the toss down there on the goal line.
Here, like, there's so much context to this situation that gets ignored just based on the result.
What? When does that happen?
First of all, the 1st and goal at the 2. First goal. They throw. They draw the pass interference and move up to the 1. But you have to ask yourself, why, when they're at the 2-yard line, are they throwing the ball? So then now they've got 1st and goal at the 1. What do? They do what everybody wanted them to do on the 2nd goal. They handed off and ran up the middle. And guess what? They got stuffed. They didn't go anywhere. Because all year long, Texas's offensive line has been a better pass blocking offensive line than it is a run blocking offensive line. That is just who they are. All their runs are mostly on RPOs. They are not a bunch of guys who are going to maul and get push and open lanes for players. They haven't done it all year. And in this instance, you're going up against probably the best run defense in the country. You're going up against the best red zone defense in the country, and you have red zone problems. That has been the core of Texas's problems all year long. Quinn's arm strength and their offensive line run blocking. It's why they don't score much in the red zone. It's why they struggle. So now you get to the 2nd down and goal. Criticize the play call all you want, the toss to the side. Well, running up the middle is not really working for you. So you're trying to beat them to the edge, trying to use the speed with Wisner. The problem was when you send Juan Davis into motion to the left, Lathan Ransom follows. Now you're outnumbered because you've got 3 blockers and Caleb Downs is still over there. So it's 4 on 3. So you snap the ball. Banks is pulling to go get Ransom, but he can't really get there in time. Ransom beats him. It leaves the lane open for Caleb Downs, who makes a spectacular play, shoots it, gets to Wisner in the backfield, kind of pushes him further wide when he was planning to cut it back. Kelvin Banks is unable to make an extremely difficult block on Ransom as Wisner keeps extending it wider, which allows Ransom to make the tackle and get the loss for the play. So you can argue that when you send that guy in motion and you see Ransom follow him, you can argue Sark should have called timeout because he had 2 left and you were outnumbered. The play was kind of dead at that point, but you didn't do it. But, I mean, the problem is more like I said. This is not a run blocking offensive line. It is a pass blocking offensive line. It has been all year. And then you can talk about the QB sneak and so now you're behind not a great run blocking offensive line going against a great run stuffing defense. And you've got a tiny quarterback who's listed at 6'2", 210 pounds. But do we really think Quinn Ewers 210 pounds? Because when I see Quinn Ewers, I don't see 210 pounds. I see about 195 to 200. So maybe then at that point, you can send in the guy who you do have at 6'4", 225, Arch Manning. So there are
give me an Arch Manning jump pass. That's what I wanted. I wanted that little like RPO, like pull out an old Tebow out there. I mean, that's if you're supposed to be the brilliant play caller, play designer, let's put in something gadgety. You got all these cracks at it.
Just if you watch this, 5 Wingo, the true freshman, I wonder if he blew his assignment. Like he immediately is like, oh yeah. He's your guy in the slot, like number 2 play side.
He took the guy right in front of him.
I don't know if like you're supposed to like pass on him, but it seems like he reacted before the play was cooked. You know what I'm saying? So
you're saying he should have taken the guy on the inside and then Banks would come pull out and get the guy he was on?
I mean, this is like really like it's not reckless because like there's no real like downside, but like it's just speculation. But he reacts pretty quick. Like before, I think he realized the play was dead. Like he reacts like, oh shoot, like I messed up.
They were outnumbered. I don't think the play works either way.
Mm.
I mean, there were 4 defenders there on 3 blockers. You're really requiring Wisner to either shake somebody out of their shoes or just beat them to the corner, which I don't think he was going to do considering all the defense. I don't know. I think Sark should have called timeout. I mean, especially because you were late in the clock, so you couldn't tell Quinn because you were after the 15-second mark. You were in the final 10 seconds. But that play, when you look at it again and go back, that thing was cooked from the start.
Yeah, Cam Williams, was like really struggling most of the game. Your offensive line in general was not getting the kind of push that you were looking for. It is going to hurt for a long time for Texas fans because Danny, you have a colleague at your other gig that I happened to ride on the bus with on the way back, who's a big Texas fan. And he was like, I mean, you wonder if that was it. Like, you wonder if that was your chance. If Texas right there just had its like best chance to win the national championship. Do you think the window is still going to be open for years to come?
I'm surprised that's the direction you went, because I feel like Texas fans are like, bring on Arch. The Arch era is here and it's going to get easier. I will say this. The schedule was set up perfectly for them.
Right.
To do it this year. They were on the cusp. They were at first and goal at the 1 to potentially go to overtime against, this super team. And as optimistic as everybody is about Arch, there's no guarantee he's just going to be a lock. I think he's going to be good, but like there could be some growing pains. So, but we talked about this going into the game. I don't think Sark was going to go anywhere. And I think Sark does have this ball rolling as far as recruiting, portaling. They're not going anywhere, but it's just really hard to win championships. And especially if the national championship game goes as the odds makers think, that opportunity could have been like Georgia was a few years ago when they almost beat Georgia. I'm not saying Ohio State's going to beat Notre Dame. Yeah. They beat,
We'll see. Coming up on the other side.
Go
ahead.
I do think Texas is going to be maybe not unanimous number 1 to start the year, but I think they'll be a clear number 1 to start the year in the polls.
Sure. But look, sorry.
Depending on what happens.
We don't do hypotheticals. Sometimes winning the daggum thing in the college football playoff era, you're going to go back to like, it's going to be the lucky breaks. It's going to be the lucky bounces. You never know when you're going to be able to miss your chance and when you're going to be able to walk through that door. We have created more randomness and more chaos towards crowning a national champion than there has ever been in the entire sport. And so we'll see.
So if you've got Texas at 1, do you have Illinois at 2 or 3?
I would say probably Illinois slightly behind the team that did crush them in Oregon.
Okay. Wow. All right. Sure. Whatever.
Okay. All right. Sure.
We'll see.
Coming up on the other side, a little bit more of the fallout on the Penn State side of things as we continue to move things forward. One last word on the college football playoff semifinals. Next.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. I have not engaged in this, though I have seen it. I figure we'll bring it up. It was a joke. It was a joke parroted by many. Ryder Boy and Tailgate. Can we talk about how bad the NFL playoff games were this weekend?
Yeah.
This 14-team playoff sucks. Jeez.
It does. Damn near. This is what happens when you put half your league in the playoffs, folks. You get a bunch of crappy ass teams in the playoffs. That's how it works.
How do we get Joe Burrow in?
Yeah,
how do we change it so that the Bengals should have gotten in that we see now? If only their coach was tweeting how they would be beating everybody.
Danny, what we had to ask ourselves in the room with Raj is, who do you not want to play? That's what we really asked ourselves. We asked ourselves, who do you not want to play? And we just kept coming back to the Cincinnati Bengals.
That's right. They were power ranked. They'd be favorites against half the field.
That's true.
Yeah.
The regular season, the Green Bay Packers went 1-6 against the Eagles, Lions, Vikings, and Bears. Why were they even in the playoffs?
Did all the favorites win?
No, the Texans won. They were an underdog, but they were at home.
So all the home
teams probably should have been favored.
Yeah. It was. I
also like the Rams tonight, who are another home dog.
Yeah, okay. I think I do too.
Okay. It is a nice reminder of the things we were talking about coming out of the first round, and all the hand wringing is it's sports. It is competitive. And if you like the competition, you are going to understand that they are going to be some blowouts. just like there were in Super Bowls for like 10 years in a row, just like there have been for tons of playoff games. And if you are only trying to watch sports to be a TV show, I have a long list of sports movies that maybe we can rank in June that you can like go out there and you can put on your television set instead of watching the game, because sometimes things go sideways and sometimes you're going to end up having a little bit of a lopsided game. Though obviously the nightcap last night was not as lopsided, but I saw that every single time the team got eliminated, a slew of jokes about how they should have never been in the playoffs. It was worth some chuckles along the way.
I didn't find it funny the first 75,000 times I saw somebody tweet it, but that 75,000 and first time really got me.
Hey, the joke gets celebrated when you bring it to the tailgate. I'm not putting somebody else's tweet on the screen, but you show up, then I'll go ahead and give that to you. Okay, speaking of the tailgate, Tom, this one was directed at you before we got going. Who should we watch for names in terms of the next defensive coordinator at Penn State?
No idea. Don't know.
But the expectation, as Tom mentioned earlier, is we should not expect a lot of drop off along the way.
Yeah, they'll be fine. They'll probably have some guy who starts off as a linebacker that they move to defensive end, and he'll end up being one of the best pass rushers in the country. That's just what they do every other year.
In a pre-recorded interview on ESPN prior to the start of the Cotton Bowl, Quinn Ewers said his plan was to go to the NFL. Bud, what was our 4 that we put together on Friday night? Would we have Notre Dame,
Irish, Georgia, Oregon,
Ole Miss?
I think it was Miami on Friday night, but that was before the Carson Beck, wasn't it?
No, we knew
Ohio
that
State?
North Carolina.
State, yeah. Oh, Carolina, yes. Excuse me.
Any change in that outlook?
I don't think so. Like Oregon fans get really mad, but I mean, Will Stein's from Texas, so like they may love Dante Moore. They may just do some due diligence, right? Like that's not a shot, like to check out what your options are. He also can go pro, certainly.
Yeah, like especially the weird thing about this QB class that is yet to really shake out is we know who the top 2 are. We don't know who the third is. And what tends to happen in the NFL draft is you see 3 or 4 guys going in the first round. Sometimes you see guys going in the top 10 that you didn't expect to go in the top 10 and you made silly bets about.
Yeah, or inside the top 16.
Anyway. Yeah. And they get a lot of money to do it. So if you are Quinn Ewers and you feel like you could be the third guy on the board, it might make more sense to go, man. Because like I don't know what are you really going to pull off by staying in college for another year?
I was pretty surprised at how he didn't even budge for a second. He's like, yeah, I'm going to the NFL. Like, and the whole speculation has been the $6 million offer and where's he going to go? And he's going to transfer. With that response, I almost feel like he's going to go. Now, I know things can change in a hurry if there legit is a $6 million offer and it is at a place that suits him and he might be able to play himself into a top 5 pick, but I don't know. He's also been banged up a lot. Like, I don't know. I feel like he did reclassify to get to his, money-making era and NFL era sooner rather than later. So I'm going to trust him at his word and just assume that he's going to the NFL.
Plus, I mean, another team came open that could use a quarterback. The Packers probably need a new one. So maybe Quinn can go to Green Bay.
Are they going to be out on Love already?
I mean,
they paid him. It's too late for that.
$55 million a year for a guy who's thrown 5 interceptions in his last 2 playoff games. I mean, it's too bad. But hey, as long as you've got play action, he's great. Just don't make him drop back and throw.
His offensive line was falling apart. His wide receivers were dying out there. I mean, it was tough.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough. I hated to see it. I was very upset. I was like, man, I really hope these Packers they could show the world what they're made of. But I guess the after effects playing the Bears, they were still feeling it against Philly.
Okay, so we mentioned the defensive coordinator side. Has this season where James Franklin not only made the playoff, but got 2 playoff wins, has that changed your expectation on where they, and it also, went toe-to-toe with Oregon? Like there's a lot that you could look at for Penn State. There's a lot of hurt right now because it kind of looked like they had this thing in the bag until they didn't. to be able to make it to the title game. So has it changed your expectation about Penn State and where they sit among the top teams in the Big Ten?
I mean, no. I talked about this in our reaction show the other night. Like, this is a very successful year for Penn State. And we talked about it at the start. Like, they had an easy path compared to a lot of the other teams in the playoff. But we talked about Penn State as being a team that would benefit from the expanded field by just because they'd get into the playoff, whereas in previous years they hadn't. They not only got in, they got to the Final Four. So they won 2 playoff games. I think you have to consider that and take that as something that's like, hey, like, that does change the narrative a little bit, but I don't think it changes where they stand. Like, I don't think you look at Penn State as being better than Ohio State. You don't look at them as being better than Oregon. You probably don't look at them as being better than Michigan as far as
There's the question. That's what I was going to say. Like, is Penn State on the same level as Michigan?
Some years they will be, but overall, no.
Okay. What about next
year? Like the Blue Chicken said Penn State is bronze medal university. Well, I saw our boy Debo in the gym the day after the game, and man, he was still, it was low, man. Like the vibes were low. I don't think anything has changed. The only thing that's changed is the system, which was good. Like, I like that they're more optimistic and they got to enjoy some playoff success, but they beat SMU and Boise State as double-digit favorites. Like, that's what they've always been able to do. They haven't been able to beat the teams that are close to or equal in talent as they are. And like, I left this season feeling like Drew Aller did not develop the way I would have liked to have seen. And at times I thought, like, after USC, I was like, that's the version I want to see. It was like, all right. And then he would kind of regress back. Then in the Big Ten championship game in the second half, made some big throws. I'm like, that's the one I want to see. But then, on the big stage with the lights are the brightest and the talent is equal, he kind of cratered there. So I still go into next season saying, I think you should get another step forward with him, but they clearly have to give him a better wide receiving core to work with. And without Tyler Warren, like, I don't know. I think Penn State is what they are, and they haven't done anything to change the narrative. And it's a really good football team, but they clearly have to take another step forward, and they haven't taken it yet.
The Penn State line is that they beat teams that they should beat. And everyone should appreciate James Franklin for the consistency. And even though he has 2 playoff wins, they were against teams he should beat. Is Steve Sarkisian going to get any James Franklin kind of treatment?
No, there's optimism around Arch.
Yeah.
Also, you beat playoff teams you should beat. That means you're better than playoff teams. That's not really an insult.
I think there's an implication there, like, the teams that they beat in the playoff were not teams that would have been in the 4-teamer like before.
Correct, but they got to the 4-teamer. So, no, I get what you're saying. It's a very successful season for Penn State. You didn't come into the year thinking you were winning the national title. You got to the semifinals.
It's July of 2025. Would you rather be a Penn State fan or a Michigan fan?
Michigan, because I've got Bryce Underwood.
Bryce Underwood.
And I feel like I already know what Drew Aller is at this point, whereas Bryce Underwood, that's the mystery box. He could be anything.
And from the fan perspective, what's better than Hopium,
Nothing.
I think it's pretty close, though.
But if, like, Bryce Underwood is awesome,
totally,
and you're going to have him for 3 years, like, yeah.
I look forward to it. We'll be keeping an eye on that for sure. Let's see. Anything else upon further review? Final words for Penn State, final words for Texas before Wednesday. We will really pivot our attention fully to the road ahead towards that national championship game.
I think both will be back in the college football playoff next year.
Both Texas and Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
I could rock with that. Bud, you agree?
Totally agree. Yeah.
All right.
Again,
yep.
Like,
yes.
I mean, if you think about like the early kind of drops off fast, like they're still, I'd be shocked if they're not top 4 in the Big Ten again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. That's
Ohio State, Oregon, Illinois, and Penn State.
The class system in the Big Ten might as well be a caste system because that shit don't break. All right. We will be back on Wednesday with the big game breakdown for the national championship game. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fornelli. You can follow him at Bud Elliott 3. Follow me at Chip _Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.